Hello everyone and welcome back to another live stream. Today is going to be a big day. We are going to talk about the new MMORPG called Defend the Night, and I have the honor to be here together with one of the team members behind this game. But before we introduce him, let's switch over to another screen. There we go. You all can see me now and listen to me. And together with me on the other side of the screen, here we have, I will introduce you all to the lead designer of Defend the Night, Lexer.
Hey everybody.
So everyone, thanks for joining in the stream. We are going to talk about this new MMORPG. So just a quick summary. So Defend the Night is a Dark Fantasy MMORPG currently in development for PC. It has a unique leveling and progression system. It strives to break the mold of the current MMO genre and replace the stale grinding and dull quest with exciting event-driven gameplays. So it sounds interesting. So Lexer, can you say in short term what you could say? What is Defend the Night? I know it's a big question, but if you could say like, what is the game for you? What is the game?
For me, it's a chance to pay a little bit of respect to the games that are very important to myself and the rest of the team members, while trying to bring the love and attention to detail back to the genre, because a lot of us feel that the way most MMOs are made today, they don't care about the world. They don't care about the art of creating a world. They don't really even care that much about their players. It's become a business.
Okay.
And granted, a business has to make money, but gaming has always had its root in love and entertainment and just good, happy thing. And that's what we're trying to bring back with Defend the Night. The fact that it's in a very dark and spooky world, it kind of makes me smile, because there's not a lot of MMOs that do that.
No.
So right from the start, we're already trying to put our own creative spin back into the MMO world to try to bring life back into it.
Okay. So so that was about what is the game, but so I should say, so what sets this game apart from other fantasy MMORPGs?
I think it's that it is a very dark, and I don't want to say horror, because horror would imply that there's gore and things of that nature. We are not going for that. We're going for like a chill down your spine, a feeling of unease, a place where when you see a dark tunnel, you're a little concerned about what might be in there, but a little excited to explore. And the fact that we are a small team of volunteers who have between us, I mean, if you put everyone's experiences together, we have, I want to say, close to, if not exceeding 100 years worth of experience of playing different games and things that we like, what we don't like, why things work, why they don't work. We can quite literally learn from the mistakes of those that came before us. But we're also not on a corporate deadline. We do have the option of experimenting, trying new things, and if they don't work, scrapping it and trying again. It's a luxury that most MMOs don't really have, because you have things like payroll or bills that you have to be concerned about.
Okay. So I just heard you say quickly that you have a small team, and are we allowed to hear what is a small team?
In this case, a small team is we have 5 core members.
Okay.
We have Brian, who is the man who steers the ship.
Okay.
He's the lead programmer, lead developer.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Scribbles, who is our chief of operations, our lead of technical art.
Mm-hmm.
We have Pi, who is in chat here. He's our world builder.
Okay.
But he's also very proficient at designing.
Oh,
He's
okay.
my right-hand man when it comes to doing classes and other things. He helps me bounce around ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's myself. And then last but not least is Nolwenn, who is our lore mistress of lores, as she would prefer to be called, who comes up with all the stories
Mm-hmm.
and ties everything together.
Okay.
And that's pretty much our core team right there.
That sounds like a pretty solid team still, even though that you're not many. It sounds like a really cool team of people who are, I assume you all are very motivated for the game. And like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
every one of us on the team, we're very passionate about MMOs. I don't want to put words in my teammates' mouths,
mm-hmm.
but for me personally, MMOs literally saved my life. So I'm very passionate when it comes towards MMOs.
Okay. And I just heard you say volunteer. So that means that the team is actually not full-time working on the game. It means it's like a... What does it mean, the volunteer part?
We're doing it of our own free will.
Okay.
Without any expectation of being paid.
Okay, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Every single one of us, we love MMOs so much that we're willing to give up whatever time that we have
mm-hmm.
to help make sure that DTN is something that we're all proud of. And in cases like Brian, who is the sole programmer, I'm sure he spends 40 hours a week working on it.
Wow.
So he's a full-time volunteer. For myself, I mean, work full-time. I have a bunch of other little pet projects that I do as well.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my free time is spent brainstorming ideas, working through those ideas, or trying to get a certain mechanic to work or fit well with other ideas that are currently in the game.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I mean, also because of this, I really hope this game is going to be a success for you all, because you put so much time in the game. And it's even your spare time, because right now there's no really options to fund you guys except buying merchandise on the website.
Correct.
And
sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying. I guess when people buy the merchandise, it still supports you in some way, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We do have a server that's online for development and for testing.
Okay.
This is being paid straight out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So any merchandise sales basically go towards that to help keep that online so that we can test things a little faster and make sure everything's working right. There's not a single member on the team that pockets any money.
Okay.
Right now, if we made $1 million in merchandise sales, all of that would go towards the game, whether it would be hiring artists to create models for us, or hiring a voice actor, or some composer for music.
Mm-hmm.
It all goes right back into the game, as it should.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope the best, so you guys also, of course, can progress on the game, and it's really cool of you guys that you are working on this game for your free time. But yeah, fingers crossed, man. So back on track with the game. Actually, I want to know one more thing about you. Which, if you're allowed to say that, which other games have you worked on? If you have worked on other games, or is this your first project?
I'm a programmer by trade.
Okay.
I have worked on a few games, but they've never seen release. They're mostly pet projects with friends,
mm-hmm.
and with DTN, this is my first official real game under a studio.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Then I guess this one is really going to be interesting. Well, I mean, hyped for you to get out there because that's like your child that is getting born.
It really is on a lot of different levels. Like with Brian being the lead developer, he puts hours and hours of work into it, but he has the chance to really see things develop at a much faster rate than the rest of us because he's there firsthand doing it. When the game's launched, I think succeed or fail, everyone on the team is going to be incredibly proud of what they've done.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think it is. Everyone on the team, is that their first MMORPG, or have they worked on other MMORPGs before?
Well, I know Scribbles has worked on the EverQuest emulator project.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure to what extent.
No.
But I also believe he did a little bit with the EverQuest 2 emulator project as well. Again, don't fact check me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that he does have experience on a more deeper level with MMOs than probably the rest of us do. As far as I remember, I think Nolwenn has also worked with EverQuest.
Yeah.
1 or 2, but I think she worked on customer service or the guide program.
Okay.
So she has a little more in depth as well. For myself, this will be my first.
Yep.
And I think for Pi as well, and possibly Brian, this will all be our first.
Well, that's gonna be cool. So before we dive into the game, because you are the lead designer of the game, and that's very interesting because of course you're going to have decisions of what's going to happen in games and so on. So I just want to know what is actually your favorite games, because that also sometimes reflects on how the game is going to be like.
Oh, absolutely. I've always said that one of the things that being an actual game designer has taught me is that a non-biased opinion is worth more than diamonds. Because whenever you look at something, you're always going to favor the things you enjoy. I used to PvP. I don't PvP so much anymore. So I do tend to have this habit of letting PvP aspects fall through the cracks. But luckily, because we're a small team, everybody does have a say in a lot of the aspects of the game. So when I fall into this habit of, oh, I forgot about PvP, Pi or Brian or Scribbles or no one go, hey, well, how would this work in PvP? And the team kind of works as a safety net for each other. As far as games that I enjoy, I grew up playing Ultima Online. EverQuest was probably my first love. Anarchy Online is another one I enjoyed immensely. I played World of Warcraft up until the end of Wrath of the Lich King.
Okay.
I have been a video game junkie, a little bit of an addict when it comes to video games. And to narrow it down to just one would be next to impossible.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's been who still is a bit addicted to video games. Okay. Well, so for this, I have like 100% a follow-up question for this one, because what was your biggest inspiration? Well, what is your biggest inspiration while making this game? Is there like a game that you really are inspired of that helps you developing this game? I'm not saying like a copy pasting, but is there another game where you think like, oh, this is really, I really love Ultimate Online, so I just want to take some course from that game? Because I know other games, they, for example, other MMORPGs creating right now, they have like these free shining MMO they have on the table, and they want to take the best parts from that but still make their own game.
That's what a lot of developers will do. They'll look at what they enjoy and they'll use that. The important thing to try to avoid is to, as you said, just copy and paste that over.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I love EverQuest. It's been a huge inspiration both in the gaming world and in my real life. EverQuest 1 helped me break problem that I had with substance abuse, and a couple other things. So if you look at our classes, you'll notice that we have a Shadow Knight, we have an Enchanter.
Mm-hmm.
These are classes that are almost exclusively found in EverQuest, in the EverQuest franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, if you were to copy it directly from, say, EverQuest 1 or EverQuest 2, that's almost an insult. Because while you may have good intentions because you really like the Shadow Knight class or the Enchanter class,
yeah,
it's kind of like stealing someone's work, you know?
yeah,
Whereas if you look at it and you try to make it your own, you're not being insulting anymore. Now you're being inspired by it, and you're almost showing these predecessors, these people who came before, that I love your work so much, it's influencing what I do. And I want to build on what you did.
okay.
And that's what we try to do.
Okay. Well, that sounds cool. So you're not like you're building your own skeleton instead of taking broken bones from other places, if you could say it that
Exactly.
way. Okay. So so before we dive directly into the game, have you talked about this game? What kind of business model you are thinking about, or is that still way too far ahead?
That's still a little ahead of the game right now.
Okay.
We feel that if we were to sit down and focus on the business aspect right now,
Mm-hmm.
the game may suffer from that.
Okay.
And right now, the game has to come first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. And then that could be the next topic. Okay. So
Yep.
if you could choose one thing from Defend the Night that you are most excited to share about this game, which part would that be? Which part of the game are you most excited about to show?
That's a hard one.
If you imagine
that is really hard.
Imagine you had the best video crew who could make a trailer about one thing in the game, what should that be about?
That is so hard. I think that's one of the toughest questions I've gotten yet. Because here's why. When you design systems for a game,
mm-hmm.
and you work out all the kinks and you are very proud of the design,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to choose between them. It's like choosing between children. Which child do you like the best?
Yeah, definitely.
There hasn't been a lot of information on the Defend the Night's religion system,
mm-hmm.
but it's actually the first system I've designed for that. I'm very excited to see it in action. I'm really interested to see what the community thinks about it as well, because it's unlike anything I've really seen before. But there's also the darkness mechanic that,
Mm-hmm.
again, we haven't really said too much about. But all I can say about the darkness is that it is a real, tangible threat to the game world. I mean, let's look at World of Warcraft with the Lich King. The Lich King was never a real threat. He sat in his castle and mumbled until someone came knocking on his door trying to sell him something, and you guys just killed him.
Yeah.
You know, that's what the Lich King did. He just sat around. He was not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
In Defend the Night, the darkness is a threat. It comes after you. And I cannot wait to see that happen. Because a part of me, I'll be a GM in the world. I'll probably be invisible, and I'll be cackling this evil laugh, watching people running from the darkness. But I'll also be incredibly proud when they band together and fight it.
So that means that darkness in Defend the Night is actually the main threat?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense with the name, Defend the Night and Darkness.
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm excited to see that. I hope we will see some kind of a, well, you're never safe in this world ish kinda. But
let's just say that when you log back in from, say, a long session, you go to sleep, you come back. Things might be in a little bit of disarray because the darkness might have attacked while you were sleeping.
Oh. Okay.
The darkness will not wait for you to be there.
Okay. So that means this is one of the games where when you actually log out, your character is still in the game but sleeping?
No, your character is gone.
Okay.
But the world doesn't stop changing.
No, okay.
Yeah, the world will keep going on.
Okay.
Whereas if you play like EverQuest 2, when you log out and you come back, the world's the same.
Yeah, like wow.
It hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
That may or may not be the case with DTN.
Okay. That sounds pretty. That sounds cool. I'm excited to see that, and I'm really hyped about to see what is the, the darkness and all that. If it's just like an illusion or if it's actually a monster, like a race or something like that. But I guess you will show us in the future.
You will see, and when we release anything about that, because we're still working on getting the classes first. Okay. Yeah, I think people are going to be very excited.
Okay, well, okay, exciting. So now you just mentioned the classes, and you have at the moment on your website, you have 11 classes at the moment. I'm just gonna just quickly tell them all so people in the chat can hear what classes the game has. We're going to see a cleric, a shadow knight, a wizard, an enchanter, druid, ranger, assassin, battle mage, necromancer, paladin, warrior, and it seems like there's one in the bottom called unannounced. So yeah. I assume that's for later fun.
Yeah. Of course, we would love to put every single class that we'd ever want in a game, but we had to draw the line somewhere. And if we can manage to get that unannounced class, we will. But we can't promise it right now, so that's why it's not there.
Okay. That's totally fine. And of course, you could also keep developing classes and just make 100 of them, but then the game will also be very hard in the end for developing. But the biggest question here for you is, which did you actually get your favorite class? Imagine your favorite class in the whole world, not just in the game, but your favorite class in the whole world. Did you get your favorite class in this game?
Yes.
Okay. Are we allowed to ask which one?
Shadow Knight.
Shadow Knight. Okay.
And I have a bit of a funny story about the design of that one.
Let me hear.
I had developed a design for a Shadow Knight, one that I thought would be fun. I have been tanking in MMOs for 20 years. I've more or less seen it all. I was really hoping to get a skill-based tank where you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to your timing. You have to know your class. You have to know what's happening. You have to try to anticipate the fight.
Yeah.
And what I had designed, we brought to the community in the form of a roundtable, and we all discussed it. And it's actually not the same class I had designed, but I love it way more. So the community is helping us with ideas, because one person, two people, three people, you're still going to miss a perspective. You're still going to miss out on a unique idea. It's just the way it works. Okay. So being open to what our community says and what they think has really allowed us to create a class that is not only unique, the gameplay is completely unlike anything I've ever seen before in 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, when I saw the trailer you had about the Shadow Knight, a little gameplay of him, he looked pretty unique, but also he reminded me a bit about the Unholy Death Knight from WoW. I mean, he had some kind of the same touch with, summon a goal and plague, but still, it was still different. It wasn't the same. but it was still different, definitely. But again, it's also the game is in final state, so I could think the game, the character also could change on the way, and also with the feedback.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Everything is subject to change until the day of release. But with the Shadow Knight, it's kind of, we're tipping our hat to World of Warcraft's Death Knight, which is a class I enjoyed, but also to EverQuest's Shadow Knight, which I also played for numerous years. But I mean, when you look at both classes, they are pretty similar. They're a death or disease style warrior. They're just a warrior with some fancy abilities. There's nothing really unique about it when you look at it like that. Just a warrior with spells. When you look at our Shadow Knight, it is a it is a pet dependent tank class. So your pet is super important.
Okay.
Your pet fuels you, you fuel your pet. You are linked with your pet. Your pet can tank. You can tank. So this means that one Shadow Knight in DTN can theoretically tank 2 mobs at once easily. Or he can tank a real big bad creature and he can share hits with his pet, which means he has technically a lot more hit points, a lot more armor than everybody else. But you have to be careful because right now, if your pet dies, you will die. That is subject to change, but that's how it is right now. So you have to pay very close attention to your pet. Your healers have to know that if the pet dies, you're in trouble too. So while it sounds very, very tricky, it's very much a risk versus reward character. You do very risky things, but as long as you pay attention and you know what your character can do, you're going to be able to do just as well as anybody else, and in some cases even better than other classes, because it all depends on the player.
Okay, that's very interesting, because normally it's always, the other way. Like if you die, your pet dies. but this time it's if your pet dies, you die. Okay, well then I hope the pet has a bit more HP than the usually pets we see in other MMOs where they just need a few.
He's gonna be very close to you.
Okay. So it's gonna be like a doppelganger, or what you.
Right. So technically, a Shadow Knight is twice the tank, but you have to be able to use that to your advantage. If you just tank the way normal classes tank, and you let your pet just throw out some damage, you're not any better than, say, a warrior. In fact, when you look at it, hit points and armor and mitigation and all that other stuff, you're a little bit behind the warrior one-on-one. It's your pet that pushes you over. So if you don't take advantage of him, you're only half the tank you could be.
Okay. That's pretty cool that you actually get the differences, because we have seen other MMORPGs where it doesn't really matter which tank you are. They all have the same HP, they all have the same damage. It's just the spells that have different colors. So that's nice to see some difference there. So,
all right, you're going a little robot-y on me.
Oh,
I think Discord's having a little hiccup.
Can you hear me back again?
Discord is having issues. I think it's settled down now.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? People, we just have some small technical issues. Can you hear me again? Hello?
Hello?
Oh,
Is
you
it
can.
back now?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Discord decided to go crazy.
Okay, no worries. Everyone else was still able to hear you and hear me, so we just like said hello to each other a couple of times. So that's fine. So I promised to ask one from your community about if you have ever thought about getting a class that could remind of a monk.
Well, I think those of you out there that are wanting to have a monk class are going to be very happy with the battle mage.
The battle mage.
Yeah. The battle mage is going to be quite reminiscent of a monk. Obviously, it's not going to be a monk, but you could see combat that may remind you of monks.
Okay, so that's gonna be a close similarity.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's going to be a lot of things you need to pay attention to with a
mm-hmm.
battle mage, because you can both fight physically and enhance that with magic.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually going to say myself that the battle mage sounded like the class that I wanted to main, because it's very rare you see in MMORPGs a mage that is going to have melee abilities. If I read correctly, it was a melee mage.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's really rare. The only other MMORPG I have seen a melee mage is pretty much Rift. I think that's the only one who did it.
I do believe you're correct. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
No, and it's pretty sad because being a mage with a big, dress and all that, like, look like a wizard and then have a big two-handed sword, that's just like so cool, or dual wield or something like that.
Yeah, the battle mage is still, it's his design is still up in the air. We're still working on it.
Okay.
My initial thought is that he's going to feel very much, almost have like an Asian flair to him.
Mm-hmm.
So his combat quite possibly could end up being very fluid, very flashy. And he could, because he has magic, he could end up having a lot more utility than, say, a warrior may have.
Okay. That sounds very interesting. So if we park the classes for a moment, I have a serious question. Do you see Defend the Night as a theme park MMO?
I believe our lead of operations, Scribble, I think he's coined the phrase sand park.
Sand park.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be an open world. We're not going to tell you what you have to do, but we are going to have quests and things of that nature to help direct you and help you figure out the things that you do want to do with your limited time.
Okay. So a side question to that one. So I guess are you able to tell us anything about the end game in this game?
In what manner?
Well, normally when personally I think about end game, it would be when I reach the maximum level. For example, when I reach the maximum level in a game, what will there be? What is the reason for why should I keep playing this game? I have now got the max level. I completed all the quests. Why should I be in this game anymore?
Right. See, that's the big problem with MMOs. They rush you to end game, and then there's only one or two things to do.
Yeah.
It never really made any sense to me. Like why you'd be pushing people to get bored so quickly. We are actually, just today we had a very long, very in-depth discussion about this very topic. We are working on a system that is a way to alternately progress your character once they finally hit endgame. And let's put it this way. when you hit that level cap, I can promise you have not seen everything.
Okay.
Unlike most games where you run through your list of dungeons, for example, you've seen them all. With DTN, I say this every time I'm on an interview, but our world builder Pi, his dungeons are absolutely massive, like
Okay.
mind-blowing. They're huge. They're so big that when he walks us through them, he gets lost. The man that makes the dungeons gets lost. So that's just to give you an idea. So when you get all the way to max level, we'll just say 50. I can promise you have not seen it all.
Okay. Well,
you'll be wanting to go back to a lot of these places just to try and see the rest of it.
Okay. So that sounds cool. And I can see someone in Pi is also saying in the chat that the first major dungeon is starting already at level 5.
That's correct.
So are we talking about level 5? Is that something that you can actually manage in getting in one day? So if I was a new player, will I be able to get to level 5 and play dungeon in one day, or would I have to play multiple days for that?
We're still working on that bit. It's a very fine bit of balance that has to be done. If it takes too long to level, people tend to get bored and they feel like a lot of work isn't being rewarded.
Yep.
Too fast and it's meaningless.
Yep.
As you see with games like Rift and World of Warcraft now, which is one of the reasons why World of Warcraft Classic had become so popular. It gave more meaning to the levels again.
Yeah.
I think we could see level 5 in a good one-day session.
Okay.
I can't really say on the numbers.
No.
Like I can't say, oh, in 4 hours you'll get to level 5, because we really want to push the fact that this is a world in which you have free reign. We're trying to give you real tangible reasons to explore, to craft, to PvP, to PvE, to do dungeons. So to say you could get to level 5 and do a dungeon in one day, if you love running dungeons and that's what you want to do, I don't see why you couldn't. But even at level 5, you're going to need a group to go through there, because I know this is going to sound bad, but we're not going to baby you. If you in Defend the Night, you are not a hero unless you choose to be one. So while the first dungeon is going to not be really insane in difficulty, you can expect to have to fight hard to get anywhere.
Yeah.
But the rewards are also going to be there.
Okay.
We're going to make sure that when you work your way to a boss, that boss was worth fighting.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say we're not going to baby you, is that some kind of are you referring to that this game is not going to have a looking for a group system?
It may not. We're not 100% there yet.
Are you a fan of it?
Because I'm a fan of the idea of a looking for group system, but the problem is that no one's really done it right. They've just thrown them together to where they're good enough and left it at that. We have a saying on Defend the Night that if we're going to bother to do it, let's do it right. Let's not cut any corners. But again, as much as that sounds like I'm slapping other developers in the face, I'm really not, because again, we're all volunteers. This is a passion project for all of us. And we have the luxury of taking our time.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. Yeah, I mean, just as a personal opinion from myself, I'm probably what you can call a solo gamer. So games that actually have a dungeon finder is normally a very, very fitting game for myself, because I can just click on one button and then I play with some random people. Maybe I get to be friends with them. Maybe it ends up like in, sorry to say, but like the modern WoW is, where everyone is just on autopilot mode and just play the game. But yeah, it's cool to have a. But I also like to have the dungeon finder where you actually just like queue up for a group, and then you have to still walk over there and still talk with the people to get over there, who has the key or something like that. Okay. So
Yeah.
so this game, Defend the Night. So you just confirmed it's gonna have dungeons. Is raiding something that is on the table?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I spent the first 2 years of my EverQuest career being a professional raider.
Okay.
And I love raiding. I love I've become more of a casual gamer over the years because of life.
Yeah.
But so I still do a lot of dungeons, and I like to raid when I can, when I have the time.
Yeah.
Because to me, raiding is just one big party.
Yeah.
It's definitely something we want to do. We do want to encourage competitive raiding. We have a couple ideas that can help with this, including leaderboards. We know we're likely going to have leaderboards for PvP. They may make an appearance for raiding. It may not. We don't really know yet. But it is something that we have in the forefront of our minds, that raiding has to be significant, fun, and it really should be competitive if you want it to be competitive.
Yeah, a challenging raid is always the best. I mean, my favorite raiding experience in any game is coming from Destiny 2.
And I will say that raiding in Defend the Night, we're trying not to make it a PvE only thing. By that I mean we're trying to include crafters. We're trying to include people who like to PvP. We want everyone to have a place on a raid. And our raids are not only going to be PvE, there's going to be raids for PvP. It's just that instead of fighting one giant scripted boss, you might be fighting 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 other players.
Okay. But does that mean the raids you're gonna have, they're not gonna be instanced, and if two raid teams is going to enter at the same time, they actually have to fight over the boss?
There will instance where it makes sense. For example, in PvP, if it's large scale, you have, we'll say, 40 people on each side. Doing that in an open world wouldn't be so easy, because all of a sudden anybody can come in and tip the scales, and suddenly it's no longer a fair fight.
No.
When it comes to PvP, that whole fair fight mentality, it can be a touch and go situation. Some people get really frustrated when, oh look, they call for reinforcements. Other people like it. So if it makes more sense to instance it, we will. Otherwise, we would like to keep it open world, because I remember in, I want to say, Anarchy Online, I watched a raid. It was an open world raid. And I sat on the sidelines and I watched. And I had a great time. I was in awe of these high-end players. And events like that really do serve to bring the community together, where everyone can get together and tell these stories years down the road.
So that means you actually enter the raid together with them, but you just stand it on the side and looking at them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not high enough or you're not part of it, you can stand by the side and you can watch.
Oh, okay.
As long as you stay safe. I mean, if it's a dragon spitting fire, you don't want to tap dance in front of his nose. That's just suicide. If you are competitive, then we are going to be spending a lot of time to make sure there's no way, or at least no easy way, to have someone kill your hard work, to claim the credit for something you did most of the work on.
Yeah.
So, and we're working on a couple really, really interesting ideas for that, where even if two raids converge to try and kill the mob before the other people, they're both going to find themselves in a very tough situation. And being an old school raider, I could tell you that I know some ways to make life hell for raiders.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I've only been a raider in WoW and Destiny, so it's always, for me, it's always been instance based. So I've never seen raids being open.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to doing it either way. It's just a matter of sitting down, looking at it, and trying to figure out what best fits your game. In our case, it's going to be where it makes sense, we instant. But we are going to try to do as much open world as is possible, just because who doesn't like to watch a giant dragon getting its butt kicked?
Definitely. It sounds very entertaining. I think I would enjoy going into a raid and watching a pro team kill that boss and sitting with my popcorn and just like enjoying it. Instead of going into Twitch, I can actually be on my cartoon character and watch it.
You can be there. And I mean, there's always something to be said about, like, if the raid wipes, you are a bystander. You could, if you have a res, you could res them and help them recover.
Yeah.
It's a show of goodwill that only helps the community. We shouldn't rob the community of a chance to bond, to become closer.
Yeah. Okay. It actually reminds me a bit of, I can't remember what it's called, but that MMORPG anime. Yeah, where everyone is trapped in the same world and they're fighting on the raid bosses. But yeah, it's another story. But it's a cool series that just reminded me of that. So that means we're getting dungeons, we're getting raids, and now a question that it's a thing that I kind of see all the new games doing. It's like everyone is trying to do it now. Randomized dungeons. No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a firm believer personally that RNG does have a place, but it's a fine, gentle touch that needs to be done with it. It's not this, oh, flip a coin if this person dies or not. I hate those. It takes away the point where even if the player has the skill to avoid it, you don't have a chance. You don't even have a chance. And there's should never, ever be a spot where that happens. That's, in my opinion, very lazy design. So I could see RNG being used in things like the range of aggro for mobs. Maybe this one's a little shorter. Maybe this one's a little longer this time. It's a small thing, but it makes it difficult to predict. So if you come to an entrance that's guarded by two mobs, maybe you can single pull them this time. Maybe the next time you can't single pull them because the range changes just slightly.
Yeah.
And now you're being presented with a whole different kind of experience than what you remember.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just little things like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, different opinions, because I myself enjoy, going into a MMO where I can click on a dungeon, and then every time I go into it, it will be randomized. Like they have these 500 bricks, but they always build them differently and places their bosses differently. But it's not like competitive in game. It's more like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, I mean, there are some cases where it does make sense. I see it used a lot in ARPGs.
Yeah.
And I guess that does make sense. But the problem is that if you don't add enough variance, you still end up saying the same thing over and over, because as humans, our brains evolved to notice pattern.
Yep.
So if you don't take that into account, even if you're randomizing something and there's only like 4 different tiles, you're going to see the pattern and you're just going to get bored anyway.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. In the end, it's gonna get boring. And of course, for raiding and dungeons, like the standard one, they have to be this iconic where people can talk about them and say, "Oh, do you remember this boss from this dungeon? Oh yeah, it was hella fun." So yeah, I agree with you. So now we have talked about all the PvE aspects, because that's, well, a lot of people, they like PvE, but there's also people who likes PvE, like me and like you. If I heard correctly, you also like PvP, right?
I used to really enjoy it, but
Yeah.
a lot of games these days don't really do it the way I like it.
Okay. Well, what kind of, okay? So of course, in your game, in your MMORPG Defend the Night, we're gonna see open world PvP, I assume.
I'm sure there's definitely going to be a few spots where that will be a thing.
Okay, because that's actually my biggest question for open world PvP. That's, can you ever feel safe in this game from another player, or will you always be able to get killed?
The problem with just open and free PvP is the fact that there are, like, I'll take myself as an example. There are some days where I want a PvP. There are some days I don't want a PvP. There are some days I just want to run around gathering crafting materials, or I just want to fish, or I want to run a dungeon or raid. It's it's never good if you force a player to play the way you want them to. Because if they log in and say, "Hey, I want to do a dungeon today with my friends," and then you end up getting ambushed by PvPers, they're not going to want to play
No.
because they're not doing what they want to do. So while I certainly understand the appeal to open world PvP, it's something where, as a player, you have to know that's what you're getting into. You can't just have it forced upon you. If we go to a point where maybe an entire zone is PvP, then the player really should be notified and go, "Hey, in this zone, you're not safe. Going forward, you have to be okay with it," and give them a chance to leave. Because in my experience, and I won't say which side of this I'm on, if you give the player the option to PvP with very little restrictions, they're almost always going to pick on the little guys.
Yeah.
Arcade is a prime example of this because it's not done right.
No.
You can get a level 50 in a level 30 zone, camping people at the little spawn point. That's not right, because now you're saying that these 5, 6, 10, 20 players don't get the right to play until this zone is no longer PvP. That's terrible design.
Yeah.
You're literally telling a player that doesn't matter what they want to do, they're not allowed. Now, to look at this on the other side of the fence, a PvPer, if he wants PvP, should be able to PvP. But when you get to the point where PvP meets PvE, it's very hard to know where to draw that line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not something we are going to take lightly. But we're hoping that we can give the PvPer enough options and enough fulfilling options to not really have them wanting to do this open world PvE or PvP so much. It's because there's going to be so many more exciting options. Because the big thing about open world PvP when I did it was that there was literally no rules. And that was exciting. So if we can create that excitement through other means, we may not even see anybody wanting to open world PvP.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, if you look at 3 new upcoming MMORPGs that's probably gonna also get quite big, they all have forced PvP on. But the good thing is they don't have full loot. They don't have full loot anymore. All of the free games. That's a good thing, because if a game is forcing me to do PvP, but also forcing me to lose all my items whenever I get killed, I'm not gonna touch that even with a spoon.
Right.
But a game that forces me to do PvP, but has some, have you played Lineage 2?
Yes.
They have this punishing system. So if you kill people who doesn't want to do PvP, you can still kill them, but you're getting this karma system where in the end you're gonna get punished and losing items or going to jail or something like that.
There are certainly those systems that we will consider.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about DTN is we do need to learn from those who came before us. If they did something right, then we should try to build on top of that and see what we can do with it. If they did something wrong, we need to understand why it went wrong.
Yeah.
And because there could be a really good system that just needed a few little tweaks or additions. I mean, when I played World of Warcraft, I don't remember the name of the zone. It was over by the undead starting area where a lot of open world PvP used to happen. I want to say it was Tar and Mill.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it was exciting, but the problem was you'd always have like one group in the town, one group surrounding the town.
Yeah.
And it just became a siege. And it was exciting at first, but then you get really bored. So it's just the same thing.
Yeah.
The only time you ever got real PvP fights is when some people were running through the zone and just going, oh, PvP is happening. I'm going to try and get a kill. And they kill someone, but then they get jumped by 4 or 5 other people. Yeah. So, like, if there's PvP players in the chat, and yourself included, what would you rather do? Open world PvP, or would you rather have a large town siege that was PvP?
Yeah, and good question, and I'm sure we're getting people to answer in the chat, but while we're waiting on them to answer, we can pick them up. So I'm just gonna say I'm definitely a fan of both systems, and also as one of the people in the chat said, that World of Warcraft right now with the war mode system has a really interesting system where you can basically just toggle it on, toggle it off, and only play with the players who have the same as you. Okay, so while people is answering in the chat, because we have like 30 to 1 minute delay, so they probably first gonna hear it now. Are we getting anything else than open world PvP? Will we see maybe battlegrounds or even my favorite PvP, arena?
It's very possible.
Okay.
It may not come with release.
No.
It may have to wait for an expansion. But I mean, there's a few of us on the team that really enjoy competitive PvP. My skills in gaming, I mean, I'm at the age where my skills are going down rather than getting better. So I'm not competitive anymore. It's a sad truth of life.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, we do want to encourage competitive play, PvE and PvP. So there will be leaderboards for a fact. I'm pretty sure that the first time you'll see them will be for PvP, where people can maybe compare their kill to death ratio or their win losses. I think would be a better way to say it.
Yeah.
To figure out who's the best, and there will be some perks to being the best.
Okay. I appreciate that, because if you look at let's say the big MMO giant WoW, they first added arena in the first expansion in the Burning Crusade. So I think that's always the cool thing. You can always add later on, but it doesn't have to be in the core game, because that's of course going to be the open world and so on.
Right.
So
and the most important thing to say would be that Defend the Night values both PvE and PvP equally.
Okay. That's a good thing, because normally in modern MMORPGs, PvP is like, it's only like 20% of the game.
Right. Or it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's always only one of them that is getting appreciated by the developers. Okay. So we have Taco back in the chat, who says that the system you're going to have for PvP, he says it sounds good. So he's a fan of it. He's a fan of it. And Bird Sage, he's saying, is that a mimic?
Yes, that is a mimic.
I'm not even sure what I'm sorry, I'm too Scandinavian for that. What is the word called? Mimic? What was that?
In D&D, a mimic is a creature that would look like something else.
Oh.
In this case, it looks like a treasure chest. So
okay.
You could be going to a treasure chest expecting to get some really good shiny loot, and then it tries to eat you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I saw that in the background, the chest with the big fangs and tongue. Okay, I get it. So, a very important question that I know a lot of people would appreciate to hear. What's the experience like playing solo versus in a group?
Okay, this one's going to be a little tough for some people to hear, because I need to start this off by saying I'm both a solo and a group player. So I understand both sides of that fence. You can solo and defend the night, but it's more like a pastime, more like a hobby, something you do to kill the time. Because no class is going to be designed around being by themselves. Every class is going to have something that they can contribute to a team, whether it be a single teammate or a full group. So if you were waiting for friends or waiting for a group to form, yeah, you could go out and solo, and you'd probably do pretty well. It would have to be things that are lower level than you. But if you want to make some really good progress, you want a chance at real fancy loot, a group is where it's going to be at.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's probably the most popular, the popular thing we see in other MMORPGs, that if you want to do the high-end game, if you want to get the best loot in the game, you need a group.
Yeah, I mean, Pi is notorious for hiding things deep in dungeons. Bosses, loot. It's all back there, and even if you go back at a higher level, there's a chance you might not find it, because some things are hidden. If you want to increase your chances of finding things, then you're just going to have to bring friends with you, because maybe a friend notices, like, hey, that rock kind of looks like an arrow and it's pointing to this corner. Why? And then they walk into the corner and then they fall down into a new room. I mean, you're not going to notice everything yourself. So even if you don't need them to fight, you need them for their eyes. You need them to notice things.
Okay. That's gonna be very interesting. I don't think I have played any MMOs with that kind of taste. It sounds very unfamiliar for me, but that's also because I'm from my generation. Is my first MMORPG ever is World of Warcraft, so I have been born into this theme park MMO, and I have never experienced anything. Well, I've played, of course, a lot of MMORPGs, but that's like what I've grown up with. So
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I grew up in the age of Ultima Online, where your inventory looked like a bag being opened up, and you just drag things over there. There wasn't even a grid. There was nothing. It was terrible, to be honest. And we're really trying to bridge the gap now between this old school of where fighting through a dungeon is something where you and your friends can, or even someone you just met, can sit down the next day and go, oh man, do you remember this? God, that was fun. I really want to go there again. with all the things that have become a standard in the MMO industry. I mean, nobody wants to deal with free floating inventories. Ugh. So you're not going to do that. That's not a good design. So we won't do it. Anything that came from a modern MMO that it was a good choice. There's no reason that we wouldn't consider, or at least try to make our own version of it. And that way, gamers of any era, you can still come to DTN. You have a place. You will have fun.
Okay. Okay, that it sounds good, and I think from my side that was the main question from my side. I have used 1 hour of your time, and I really appreciate that. But before we are ending up this, I just want to hear in the chat. Does anyone in the chat have some questions? Because that now is your time to come up with the questions at all. So everyone in the chat, if you have any questions for the lead designer of the game, come with them now in the chat. And also, we actually got one from Taco Bag. Will there be level loss in DTN?
I'm going to say that there will definitely be experience loss. And I can't get into it right away, but there is a little bit of a safety net where you may not lose experience right away. It will instead take away something else that is very, very valuable in DTN. And once that's gone, you start losing experience. Now, with level loss, there's a problem with level loss is, say you're going through a dungeon, you have this sword in your inventory that you bought from somebody or somebody gave you, and you have to be level 12 to put it on. You level halfway through the dungeon, you put it on, you're so excited, you threw away the old rusty iron sword that you had because you've got this big crazy cool sword, and then you die and you lose your level. Suddenly you're stuck with a sword that you can't use, and you have to punch things to death.
Yeah.
That's going to make getting that level back incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
We don't want you to get frustrated.
Mm.
We want to give you a challenge, but this is a frustration that should be avoided, because in the process of trying to get that level back, what if you die again? You still don't have the level to put that sword back on. And you could find yourself in a downward spiral to the point where you just don't even want to log in anymore.
Mm.
That's not a good experience.
No.
So if there's level loss, there's going to have to be some way to avoid that frustration, or at least make it easier on you. But if we avoid level loss, I can promise you one thing for sure, that death is still not going to be fun for you. Because, like I said, there's going to be something else that will work as a safety net. And the level of the value of what you're going to lose could be very, very bad. Not something you can't recover from, but it's something that you would rather not have taken from you.
Okay, that sounds pretty exciting, with still leaving a little of, mysteries of what it could be.
Little mystery for people to chew on.
Okay. So, what says the chat? Bird Search Sage saying, why does Lexar love Paladins so much?
I've been on a Pantheon Rise of the Fallen talk show for 4 years called The Voices of Terminus. It's actually what got me on Defend the Knight's team because we had talked and theory crafted about ideas and designs and such. My thing in the MMO world is that paladins are too easy. They're the class you play when you don't have any skill, or you're looking for a lazy way to make yourself feel good. That's what paladins have become. So everyone knows me as a guy who hates paladins. But I have to remind Beard Sage that it's not that I don't like paladins or the people who play them. I married someone who plays a paladin. It's the fact that paladins have become the training wheels of the MMO world that I hate, and it needs to change.
I think you're on a correct spot there. Paladin's always the nice class to play, but also the easiest in most times.
Right. I mean, like we'll take classic WoW for example. A warrior had to use Sunder Armor and Devastate in order to hold aggro.
Yeah.
And those are single target abilities. Thunderclap didn't cause aggro. You could make interesting macros for mousing over your enemies for that stuff, which did help a lot. But it was still very difficult to hold more than one as a warrior.
Yeah.
A paladin just walks up and goes, consecrate.
Yeah.
I have everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I don't have any respect for those people who play the paladins because it's like you're doing more than I can, but all you did was press a button. Me as a warrior, I could hold 4 things at once. And because you could press a single button, it wasn't a big deal.
No.
When as a warrior holding 4 things, back in the day, it was a really big deal.
It was. Yeah, I used to raid. I was the off tank in Walden Core. And we had a very serious guild, and I was the warrior tank. And yeah, I know the struggles on Onyxia when all the small dragons came and you stand as a warrior, you were like, okay, I'm just gonna screw this.
Yeah, you just kind of look at your screen and go,
yeah.
Oh.
And you just watch the paladins with their concentrate. Yeah.
And then people would yell at you because, like, why can't you hold more than 2? If you only knew. Sorry, I don't have an easy button.
No, not
but that's the whole reason why Beard Sage is giving me grief about loving paladins.
That's a good story. So Tacoback, he has a message. By the way, guys, the merch t-shirts are really nice. I have 2 already. You should buy some. Help with the game development costs.
Yeah. It's not usually a good thing for someone to plug their own merchandise. It just tends to look bad. But here's the thing. We do it through a third party, and we don't get samples of them. We have to buy them ourselves. And I'm wearing one right now.
Oh.
I mean, it's a very comfortable shirt. So it's honestly worth the money. We get a small fraction of the cost. I think we might get $3 or $4 for each shirt.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, none of that money goes into any of our accounts. All that money goes straight back to the game. Because everyone who is developing this game, we're here because we love MMOs. We're not here because we want to get rich. You know, the money is the last thing on our minds.
Yeah.
In fact, we're starting to prep our Kickstarter campaign now because we weren't even going to consider a Kickstarter until we had something playable. That was set down very early on in development, where if we as developers can't jump in and play it, we have absolutely no right to ask anybody for money, period. And we've held true to it.
Okay, well, that's shout out to everyone who want to support this game. You should definitely go to the website. I just brought it in the chat. You can go find the merchandise button in the bottom of the screen, and help the game out with the cost of servers and development by buying some of the merges until the game gets on Kickstarter, where we can of course kick the game. If you could say that, start the game. Let's say start the game.
Well, you could say kick too. Is just kind of what Kickstarter is going to do is really light a fire under our butts.
It's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to see what your goal is, and I will do my best to also help you out with trying to achieve it.
And everybody at DTN appreciates it very much. We love all of our community members. We love every one of our content creators. We actually, again, we sat down early on and we said that our community is incredibly important to us, and our content creators even much so. We treat our content creators like first-class citizens, like you're part of the team, because you really are. I mean, everything that content creators do is to help what they're covering. Mm-hmm. So you're helping us. And we honestly can't thank you enough.
Well, I'm a big MMORPG fan, so when seeing more MMORPGs arising, I'll be there. So thank you too.
I can't wait to see you guys in the game.
It's gonna be fun. I can't wait to get hands on. So before we stop, we promised to take the questions in the chat. And Pi, he's asking you, which is your favorite dungeon design so far and why?
Pi, why do you do this to me? Pi is our world builder. He's the dungeon designer. God.
So he's testing his own dungeons.
It's so difficult to choose. We have Seditious Sanctum, which is our first dungeon. Mm-hmm. It's the first one that he walked me through. It is just mind-blowing how big that place is. Mm-hmm. And I love the swamp area. I love the graveyard area in there because it's so eerie and atmospheric, where it may be an open area, mm-hmm. but the visibility isn't that great. And when we add the ambient sounds to it, it really sends a chill down my spine because I don't know what's out there. But when we come to the frozen mines, which is literally just a frozen mine. I think it was Frozen Maya Tormented Souls. I will correct me if I'm wrong. I just call it Frozen Mines. With the reflective nature of the ice that is forming over everything, it is just an awe-inspiring vision when you walk in there. Everything, it looks cold. You look in there and you see your character standing there and you just think that your character's shivering. And they pull you in so much. I don't know where I'm going to spend most of my time, but I can tell you I will spend most of my time in a dungeon.
Mm. Okay, that sounds cool. So did you trick answer that question about what was your favorite design?
I did.
Okay.
I think if I really had to choose, I think I would have to say Seditious Sanctum.
The level 5 dungeon.
The level 5 dungeon.
Okay.
It's my favorite so far.
That's a good point because that's a good thing because the first dungeon they will get into is one of the greatest dungeons.
Yeah.
Well,
it's literally it's all mostly underground. Yeah. There are so many little hidden sections and areas and bosses mm-hmm. that even if I'm running around invisible as a GM, I'm going to be sharing in a group's enjoyment of the zone because I'm going to be able to see them find these areas. And you'll tell just by the way their characters are moving that they're excited. They're going to be running around, like, say you uncover a hidden room behind an illusion wall. You're going to be checking out every section of that room. Mm-hmm. You're looking at everything because you're going to all of a sudden now start walking along the walls to try to find hidden walls. But there might only be one. There might be two. Or maybe there's something under the water. It'll be so enjoyable and fulfilling to be in the game and watch people discover these things. And even with Seditious Sanctum, the very first time that we went in there, we spent 4 hours running around that dungeon without any mobs. We didn't see it all. In fact, we got lost a couple times. So I love them all so much. But yeah, Seditious Sanctum would have to be my pick if I had to say which one.
Okay, well, I think it's a cool thing because I think a lot of MMORPGs, they have this thing that the first dungeon people get into is always the most boring one.
Yeah.
So why do you have the first experience has to be bad? Oh, that's because you have to get to high levels before it gets fun.
Right, and that goes back to, what, like, all these MMO designers always I guess complain's a strong word, but they're always saying that they can't create content fast. Then I play the game like World of Warcraft. Well, the content was interesting in Classic. You had lots of things to go, lots of places to go, lots of things to do. And then you get Burning Crusade, where you're literally jumping from hub to hub as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So that you can get to the fun dungeons.
Yeah.
Because Hellfire Rampart?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Was a really short and really kind of boring dungeon.
Yep.
And I believe their excuse was, well, we have to give people a gentle intro. It's like, well, no, you don't, because they should be level 50 when they come here anyway. They should have already run dungeons. So why? It's just an excuse for something that was bad.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate of the journey. I never used to be, because I used to be a hardcore raider. I used to rush to endgame in every expansion so that I can raid and be number one. And now, as my years, as I'm leveling up in real life, I'm coming to appreciate the journey, the groups that I have, and the events that we come together over. I mean, in EverQuest 1, I can remember retiring from raiding and then coming back as a new character on a new server, taking my time, meeting some friends, doing dungeon crawls, dying in the most idiotic manner possible, and sitting around in TeamSpeak with these people laughing about it. If you are focused on just rushing to endgame, every setback's going to annoy you. Every setback's going to make you very aggravated and very frustrated. And you kind of do that to yourself, but also the developers need to help promote the journey. And I feel like they've stopped even worrying about the journey.
Yeah, I agree with you. So yeah, I'm looking forward for you, and also Tackleback. He said that that's first time since Befallen in EverQuest that he's seen a dungeon for level 5. so that's and also Tackleback. He actually just said that he's your biggest fan of the game. So now we have the biggest fan of the Defend the Night. That's a big title, Tackleback. You have to hold that up. But he has a question.
That's a big boast.
he says, serious question. How many characters is a full group?
How many characters is a full group? I think right now we're aiming for 5.
Okay.
Because that way you have your tank, your healer, you're going to need a utility, and then you have room for 2 DPS, because let's face it, DPS is probably the most popular role in every MMO. They're a dime a dozen, so you gotta make a little extra room for them.
Oh, okay. So you're actually going with 4 roles. You're going with this. Also, our game's called support.
Yep, the support's gonna be a big A big deal. And that doesn't necessarily mean crowd control, because every single class is going to be able to provide crowd control. But with every class, we're not saying that, okay, you're a tank, but you're only a tank.
Yeah.
We're trying to say you tank easily. But if you want to DPS, you can. You just have to work at it. You have to learn how to DPS as that class. If you're a wizard, yes, you're going to be able to nuke and burn things very easily.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to provide some utility. You can support your team. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to.
No.
But, I mean, I get so tired of a lot of these games where there is no such thing as a support role anymore. It's like, oh, healing is support. Well, technically, yes, healing is support, but it's a very specialized support.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to people who were very good buffers or very good debuffers or crowd controllers? Whatever happened to these types of roles? We need to bring them back.
Yeah, I agree. I miss the support from Rift. It was really great having a support in that game. So I'm looking forward, and I have actually seen other games also out there beginning to bring back the support. So it's great. It's with hashtag free support, free to support,
free group support.
Yeah. So I think we covered all the questions now in the chat. So I think that's hitting that. So if you have do you have any last messages to everyone before we rounding this up?
Oh, let's see. All I can tell you is that DTN, like I said earlier, it's run by volunteers, run by people, and being built by people who really care about it. They don't care about your money. They don't, we don't really care about trying to be the WoW killer. We want to make a good game. We want to make an enjoyable world and an experience where you guys can come hang out with us. We can hang out with you. You can make some friends. You can create events that you'll remember for years. And we want you to be able to play in our world the way you want to play.
Yeah.
We don't want to force you to do PvP because we like to PvP. We don't want to force you to have to craft because we like crafting. We want you to play our game your way. And we hope you have fun with us while you do it.
I think that's a good last message for everyone. So, Alexa, thanks for joining me on this live stream. I know we have been using 1.5 hours. So I really appreciate your time taking up with us today.
The pleasure has been all mine. You have a wonderful community. You've been very easy to work with. And this has been a very enjoyable chat.
Thank you, and same as. So thanks again for joining, and everyone in the chat, thanks for joining in. And I can see that we have had over 300 unique visitors. So thanks to everyone who has been joining in and tuning in. And this live stream is also going to be on demand after the live stream ends, so you can always go back, watch it. And I'm even gonna sit and listen to it and make timestamps, so you can go to each of the sections if you want to hear about different questions. So yeah, so thanks for watching, everyone. And again, thanks for the DTN, Defend the Night team, for giving us this great opportunity to make the interview. And I'm really looking forward to your Kickstarter. And yeah, it's gonna be fun to support you guys through the whole way. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what the future holds. It's been a wonderful time, and remember, defend the night or forever lose the dawn.
And that was the last from us. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.